these spiritual beings, angels and the like, they ask amongst themselves, where is God's greatness? Where is his glory? Where is he to be found? And they say, in this physical world, full of his glory. And in particular, his people, Israel, the Jewish people. In other words, God forsakes all of the retinue above, all of the regiments and all of the unbelievable heavenly creatures, because that's not the ultimate purpose. But what God does is he chose his people, Israel, the Jewish people, whom he brought out of Egypt. And what was Egypt? Egypt, what it was back in the day, right, was considered the Ervas Haaretz, Zumas Vituma, impure. The dunghill that we're talking about. A lowly and disgraceful place. That's the dunghill that we came from, Egypt. And God took us out of there. Who took us out exactly? We just come from the Passover Seder, 3 weeks ago. And we say there in the Haggadah that God, it wasn't an angel that took us out. It wasn't, and it goes through, all different types of angels, heavenly creatures. No, but it was HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. In His glory, He descended Himself to bring us out of Egypt. The King Himself took us out of the dunghill. That's the parable. Why? Why did He do that? In other words, God has this retinue that goes with Him. This unbelievable entourage of spiritual beings that are much closer and more aware of God than we are. And definitely not just as we are, but where we came from, the dunghill, and slavery in a impure land. Why does God do all of this? It's in order to bring us near to Him in true closeness and a real attachment of our soul. That our soul should be truly bound up with the Almighty. That we should be totally bound up with God. How are we bound up with God? So the metaphor of a kiss. What's the metaphor of a kiss? We've had this previously. Is two mouths coming together, which means through, right now what we're doing, learning Torah. We're learning Torah. We're mouthing the words of God's divine wisdom and divine will. By mouthing it, we're mouthing His words, so it's like two mouths coming together. And there's the exchange of breath, as in a kiss, right, which is the idea of the inner spirit of God enters us. His inner spirit enters us. And therefore our spirit is cleaving to the Spirit of God. How? Because we comprehend the will and wisdom of God. And that makes us truly one. Makes us truly one. So He takes us into this inner chamber where He doesn't bring the angels. He doesn't bring the spiritual beings. He doesn't bring the higher levels. But He brings you and I. Furthermore, that's a kiss, but an embrace. Through doing a mitzvah, we get the royal embrace. Through fulfilling a positive commandment, one of the 248 positive commandments, which the 248 positive commandments are metaphorically like the limbs, the organs, the limbs of God. So just like how do you embrace a person? With your arms, with your limbs, you embrace. When you do a mitzvah, God is embracing us, and we embrace Him. And in that embrace, you have the right hand, the left hand, you have the center, which is Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, which is the two arms, which is God's kindness, God's compassion, God's Gvura, strength, severity, judgment, is embracing together. That as they come together, His compassion, as Chesed and Gvura come together. Right, the right and the left are separate, but when they come together, creates even God's compassion that embraces us through the act of a mitzvah. And this then is the meaning of when we say a blessing when we do a mitzvah. We say Asher Kidishanu b'mitzvosav, that He has Kidishanu, betrothed us in His commandments. Wow. Generally we say Kiddishanu is a sanctified us, but it also means betrothal. Kiddushin. What does it mean, betrothal? What does that mean? Well, the metaphor of a man who betroths his wife. They become united in a perfect bond. As the verse says in Bereshis, in Genesis, and he shall cleave to his wife and they shall become one flesh. That's exactly what happens when we do a mitzvah, that we have a union, a cleaving of our divine soul that's engaged in Torah and mitzvahs, together with the vivifying soul, the animal soul, and its garments of thought, speech, and action, because your vivifying soul, your animal soul, is engaged in doing the mitzvah, right, with your body, to become united with the light of the Ein Sof of God, of the limitlessness of God. So this spiritual union infinitely surpasses actually the union that's a physical union between a man, a husband and wife. There is no greater union in this world than the union between husband and wife. And that serves as a metaphor for us to understand that there's no greater union, even infinitely greater, is the union that we have with God right now in the mitzvah that we are fulfilling. And that's what it means, Kiddushin, betrothal of a man and woman. And that's what it means, the betrothal that we have with God. And that's the blessing that we make when we do a mitzvah. Asher Kidishanu. God has sanctified us. Powerful. So what do we have here? An amazing metaphor that we will unpack. But the metaphor is God takes us out of, and here we're speaking collectively of the Jewish people. It's going to be personalized later. But right now we're speaking collectively of the Jewish people. And God took us out of a place that we could have been completely lost. In a place that's complete defilement and purity in Egypt. And He took us out. And He didn't send some kind of minister to take us out. He didn't do that. He Himself did it, the king himself. I mean, think of the metaphor, right? A king comes by and he sees a lowly being living on a dunghill, right? A homeless individual. So the king himself is going to go over he'd send someone over, to help the guy. No. King himself does. And not only taking us off the dunghill, bringing us out from there, but bringing us into the inner chamber. Because it's not about merely getting out of a bad place. Ultimately, it's about getting into a good space. So God took us out of the bad place. Let my people go. But it's in order that we can serve Him. We can actually connect to Him. We can be one and united with Him. So He brings us into His palace. Doesn't just, take us out of that bad place, but puts us into the ultimate space. That space of oneness with Him. In a unique way that we have through the mitzvahs that we fulfill. The Torah that we learn. The divine kiss, the divine embrace. Whew. Just saying these words is like very powerful to think about. And the blessing that we have as a result of it. Questions, comments, thoughts? 2 question marks before you ask a question, please. Well, if Hashem took the Jews out of Egypt, yeah. Why did it take so long for God to take us out of the dunghill? Good question, Golda. One explanation, I mean, there's several layers to explain that. Like, we lived on the dunghill for 210 years. 86 of those were very harsh, harsh labor, harsh slavery. So God could have taken us out earlier, no? That's true. Of course, we had to go through the process. That was necessary. We had to come to a time or a place that we were bitter enough that it's enough, and we cry out to God, and we want it out. Excuse the metaphor. Excuse the metaphor, but there's something to this. A baby in a diaper, makes in the diaper. So first it's warm, and it's actually, excuse me, but it's soothing, the warmth. But in the end, what are you sitting in? What are you sitting in? Right? So what happens is, in our lives, we could be sitting in real, but it's warm. Yeah, it cools off afterwards, but because it was warm initially, it's appreciated. And then you get used to it, living that way. Likewise, in our lives, we could be sitting in such a bad place, a dunghill of dunghills, and we get used to it. And we think that's life. And because that's life, it's become how we operate in life. And because we operate that way in life, we ain't moving from there. Until you're bitter enough of your place and you want to get out of it. I just had someone who called me. I run a drug crisis center, Chabad Lifeline. I run people that run it for me, or run it, brother-in-law, sister. But someone called me. But his daughter, 21. What? She said she has to make the phone call if she wants help, because she's sitting in a dunghill, and it's warm, it's comfortable, and at a certain point you got used to it, and you know what? No other way. Until you're bitter enough with your situation, do you want to change? Only when you're bitter enough with your situation, then you want to change. If it's not bitter enough, then you won't. So it took a little time for the Jews become embittered because of their situation, and they wanted change, and they cried out to God. Anyways, the important point over here, and it actually fits in with the 12 steps very well, is that who took you out from there? God. So do we recognize the situations that we have been in and how we got out of it? That we didn't sit in that dunghill. That we got out of there. If we recognize Hashem in our lives and how He takes us out, but that's going to be, personalize it later. Right now, it's more general. All right. Any questions on Instagram? Today, folks, I have your site for my father. 44 years ago, he passed away. I was much younger. Before I got married. And may his neshama go from strength to strength. May have, I'm sure, no doubt, that from the teachings of Tanya and on everything else that is elevating his neshama and has great nachas, great spiritual joy from all the things that are being done. As a result of my father, ultimately. My mother. May she be well. As the sages say, Yafa ke'echa ben mike'echav. Greater is the strength of the child from the than the father. So that's one way to explain. But is that every parent wants their child to be better than them. So greater is the strength of the child than the parent. Another way is, greater is the strength because it comes from the power of the parent, because it comes from them. So for that, I'm eternally thankful. My father, Aryeh Leib ben Yaakov Halevi. Hashem would go from strength to strength. Folks, the Tanya Rabbi community is actually beginning this evening. Those who signed up got an email, and I'm looking forward, very much looking forward to this, the beginning. If you didn't get a chance to sign up yet, try to do that as soon as you could, so you can get in right at the ground level, the first meeting this evening. Go again to TanyaRabbi.com or .org, either one, and take a look and see. And if you're sitting on the fence, you're not certain, the commitment is not carved in stone, unless you carve it in stone. But it's a monthly commitment. If you want to cancel at any time, you cancel. So please don't, don't fret over it. Just join us. Michael, please share with us. Go ahead, Michael.
First, may the memory of your father be a blessing and his neshama have an aliyah in Gan Eden.
Amen.
I have a question. When the story with the water reflection was that God took us out of Egypt, but when we don't connect to Torah every day, then it's like we never left Egypt. Is therefore the Moda Ani that when we wake up that we remember God gave us a breath again, and that we refresh this kiss between Hashem and the Jewish people.
So the beautiful thing is that we get an opportunity all the time to do a mitzvah, to study Torah, and we're in the midst of unfolding. Well, actually, we didn't unfold yet, really, the metaphor. We just gave the metaphor. All right, we just gave the metaphor. And we're somewhat unfolding it. Just understanding it, that it is a betrothal. What does it mean that God took us into the inner chamber and with an embrace and kiss? So we're just explaining the metaphor now. And the beautiful thing, Michael, is that we have this opportunity at all times. The issue, or where the Alter Rebbe wants to go with this, as it will unfold, is just think about that. What should that do for us? That's the question, right? What should that do for us? So that's called reciprocal love. That's where we're going with this, but more on that to come. Yeah, more on that to come. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for the blessings I see that you're giving for my father. Much appreciated. Yeah. So, to be continued. By the way, Rambam 1 o'clock, and there'll be also Torah studies tonight, 6:30. And as I mentioned, Tanya Rabbi Community, TRC. Again, please take a look at Tanya Rabbi. And if you're sitting on the fence, try for 1 month. Doesn't work for you? Okay. I hope it will. And even if the schedule, we're working on schedule, so don't worry about the schedule, because that's something we're going to be working with the people that are coming in. I mean, tonight is tonight, but then we're going to work on making certain that we can work out the best schedule. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you, Tanya. A gute Woche. Have a great week. God bless you all. Thank you.